on the question of the threats the Hindu society is facing. I am presently in the United States because every year during the summer, come back to teach 2 courses at Harvard. And this particular visit, I'm coming in the background of what's happened in India recently. And therefore, I'm grateful to the Kanchi Kamakoti Siva Forum for organizing this talk. Hindu society is today fragmented. It's fragmented by caste, it's in disarray, and it's facing a threat. Discovered in near Muzaffarabad, which is in Pakistan-held Kashmir, which is called a Sharda temple. It's still called Sharda temple, and the town nearby is also called Sharda, where Adi Shankara prayed, and this was brought to my attention by the Shringeri Shankaracharya, who is a great scholar, and who urged me to do something about it. And I did, and I wrote a letter to President Musharraf, and I hope one of these days very soon to go. I may remind you or tell you that Kailash Mansaro was opened at my initiative when I met Tang Xiaoping in 1981, and I was the first one to go after 30 years. Of course, now almost 1,000 people go every year. And therefore, time has come where I would urge us that for the survival of Hindu society, we should now start thinking about the society much more than the family and the individual. Today, the Kanchi Shankara case and other developments in the country have laid the threat bare. The Kanchi Shankara case is a bogus case because I have studied it, and I'm saying it with the authority of a person who knows law, who has been a minister of law, who has fought a lot of litigation in his life, never lost any one of them. A lot of bogus litigation, a lot of bogus cases have been foisted on me too, but nothing remained. And it is bogus because the Supreme Court, who are now running a huge campaign against the Hindu religion. The recent example of Benny Hinn from the United States. He came to address a congregation in Bangalore. The government cleared the Air Force, Indian Air Force area, which has never been given to anybody, for him. And the Chief Minister himself attended, central ministers attended, they all prostrated before before Mr. Benny Hinn. And Mr. Benny Hinn had about 200 people come on the stage, either as lame or dying of cancer or having other ailments, and all he did was put his hand on them and they got cured immediately. The police later on obviously got out of hand. They later on declared, maybe in a fit of conscience, that these people never had any ailment and they were brought from the neighboring Tamil Nadu and they were coached for 2 weeks before on how to walk as a lame person, how to behave like a cancer patient, etc. And this whole thing was a fraud. In fact, Benny Hinn had been suggested in a press conference, when he had held a press conference, that a medical doctor from an independent hospital be present to first examine the patients and then let them come up, which he refused. And at the end of his 3-day congregation, he thanked Ms. Sonia Gandhi for enabling him to hold the function in the first place and providing state support for this. If you are a secular government, why should the state have supported it? But I have found that in the United States, Mr. Benny Hinn is under investigation of the IRS and many others for fraud. And the Associated Press released a news item from Dallas saying the Internal Revenue Service is looking into the operations and finances of televangelist, they don't even call him a padre, televangelist Benny Hinn's organization, according to sources. IRS wouldn't discuss the case, but a representative of the Benny Hinn ministry confirmed that investigation was in. This is not the kind of secularism that can survive. So the question becomes, what should we do? Of course, let me say that in other occasions, when crooks have been found in religious circumstances, people have come to defend them whether they have committed a crime or not. There is a case of Mr. Charles Keating, who donated $1 million to Mother Teresa. Later on, the Los Angeles County filed a case against Charles Keating for fraud because he has defrauded 17,000 individuals of $252 million. Mother Teresa wrote a letter to the judge itself, a judge called Mr. Ito, saying that since he had been donating for God's work, he should be let off. The judge didn't reply, but he asked the district Kanchi Mutt, which has taken place on a series of temples in Karnataka where the hundi has been seized, whereas it happened in North India of terrorist attacks. We have found no other minority groups has come to defend Hinduism. So therefore, I would suggest the following. First of all of us now, once again, will have to foster a clear concept of what it means to be a Hindu. Going to temples is not sufficient, necessary but not sufficient. I've written a book recently, which will be published in September. It's available on my website, www.indiarights.org, and I've titled it as The Fundamentals of National Renaissance. And I think identity means not just being religious. Identity means a correct understanding of who we are, what our ancient history is. The history books introduced by the Congress government in 1947 or continued by the Congress government were written by people who didn't want to foster the idea of a united India. Not even united Hindus. They fostered the concept that caste is by birth. It did become by birth, but caste is not determined by birth. If caste was determined by birth, Valmiki couldn't be called a rishi. Vishwamitra couldn't be called a rishi. Veda Vyasa could not be called rishi. And it's being taught in such scientific ways now, and they're being taught in very scientific ways in US universities. There are cassettes on it. And I think learning of Sanskrit should be taken as a fundamental aspect of Hindu identity. And we should try to learn to converse in it. Accepting Devanagari script as a common script for the whole of India is another fundamental Hindu identity. I'm happy to say that in India now, in Tamil Nadu, milestones now have Devanagari. Of course, some ignoramuses say that is Hindi. That's not Hindi. It's a script in which Hindi is written. It's a script in which Marathi is written. It's a script in which Nepali is written. It's a script in which Sanskrit is written. It's a script in which almost Gujarati's script is very close to it. And in fact, if you know the science behind the Devanagari script, all the scripts are originally descendants of Brahmi, including Tamil script. They're all descendants of the same script, namely Brahmi. So therefore, for national unity, we need a common script, and that has to be Devanagari. And it should be compulsorily taught. I would suggest third thing, that those of us who want a clear Hindu identity must work, because we are a democracy, for only those candidates who now propagate a clear-cut Hindu agenda. And I say this now because of the threats that the Hindu society is facing. I wouldn't have said this a few years ago, but today there is a threat, and the threat is from both abroad and within. And therefore, those of us who do not consider democracy as a spectator sport to watch two politicians fight and enjoy that fight, must therefore work for those candidates. Either you yourself stand, but you certainly must vote, and you must certainly work in some way for those who believe in a Hindu agenda. And what that agenda is, I can tell you at the question time. Who was a tea shop owner. He was the candidate against her. They couldn't find any other candidate. And the entire state voted against her party, and she didn't get a single seat. Hence, the main thing is to make the Hindus perceive the danger. And then there's just no difficulty in getting the Hindus to unite. And Hindus have united over the centuries, contrary to the history written that we have been subjugated by foreigners. We have consistently fought all through the 150 years from Akbar to Aurangzeb. There were fights. The Vijayanagaram Empire was a larger empire than the Mughal Empire was ever. And Shivaji fought. After that, when the British came, India fought. In fact, even temporarily in 1857, we had deposed the British government, and an Indian emperor was brought back. So, therefore, I would there be independent court. It may be the Kanchi Chankracharya might get convicted in the Sessions Court, but it won't be upheld by even the most pliant Supreme Court in a national framework. The more important question is that you have asked is, when will these attacks stop? According to me, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister is performing according to a script given to her from the center. And that is because she herself is facing so much prosecution that she is terrified of going to jail herself. And the case that is being held in Bangalore is being held in a Congress government state. And therefore she is in a mood to oblige them, so that they don't get too rough with her. And therefore, why the center is doing like that? Well, there is also rivalry amongst the Shankaracharyas. There is a Shankaracharya of Dwarka called, what is his name? Sarupanand, who is promised to say that if he is made the sole Shankaracharya in the national level, then he will hold a congregation in Delhi and declare Sonia Gandhi as an avatar of Durga. And she needs that kind of support because she is under attack for being foreign. And she needs an Indian religious preacher to say that. So the elimination of Jayendra Saraswati, who is perhaps the most well-known Shankaracharya of India today, is essential for that. Moreover, Jayendra Saraswati had gone with the Dalits and tried to co-opt them into the Hindu framework. And that Dalits some community is a fertile ground for all these rogue Christian missionary elements that are coming. And therefore there is a conflict between these elements who come from abroad and those who the activities of gender society. So therefore, as long as a government which is itself under blackmail, the Tamil Nadu government, is in power, the illegal activities of the Indian government, whether it's the state or the center, you would assist me in this process. For example, actions against religious freedom internationally can be taken up by the US government. It was done in the case of Narendra Modi. Whether it was rightly done or wrongly done, I'm not going into that. In my opinion, it was wrongly done. And I'll explain why. But in the case of the Kanchi Shankara, those of you who hold American passports should write to your senator and congressman, to write to the president, to take it up with the Indian government. But why are you harassing this man? When the Supreme Court has said there is no prima facie case. This is religious intolerance. And the Americans have an act. I don't know the exact wording. I think it's Religious Freedom Act or something like that. And there are ways on which you can also open a new flank. And this flank is valued in India. Indians are still very crazy about what foreigners think of us. And therefore, you should open a new flank in this country and put pressure on Jayalalitha to behave. The HRNC Act has to be scrapped and replaced by some statute which permits self-governance by temples, by appointing committees and having audit facilities. Now, that doesn't mean that a party should come to power which is pro-Hindu. In my opinion, in the next assembly elections, even if 5 MLAs get elected in the assembly elections who get elected on Hindu agenda, and nobody gets a majority, for example, and you need these 5, then I think any government that comes, one of the things they will be happy to do to come to power is to scrap this act. It's the advantage of coalition governments, that a few people can make a lot of difference. People ask me, why you keep Janata Party so small? Because if I keep it big, I have to collect being humiliated. So I would say that on the recruitment policy of the Kanchi Math, I will not go into it, just as I would not go into the recruitment policy of a corporation in America. That is as long as it is not offensive. If they restrict all to a club, if somebody says, I won't take you in a club because you don't meet our qualifications, I would not follow with that, except unless it is something which is offensive to human nature. So I think the main thing is that Shankaracharya Jayendra Saraswati Swamigal has distinguished himself as a person who is treated Hinduism as a single entity in which all Hindus are equal.
Dr. Swamy, my name is...
When the society itself is attacked, we must retaliate, and retaliate in such a way that it becomes a disincentive for future attacks on us. That is the distinction we have to make, and that is what we have to do. I think most of all you should cease to worry about your image. If you think that something is good for Hinduism, do it. Don't care about your image. In the long run, people will respect you better if you mean what you say and say what you mean.
Any more questions for Dr. Swamy? Hold on.
From what you have been mentioning about
And the mere inquiry of that will make a difference. I know it will make a difference. The second thing you can do is that whenever somebody visits from here, from India here, a minister, Prime Minister is here tomorrow, make an attempt to get an appointment. Certainly it will be conveyed. You say, on behalf of the Kanchi Forum or Kanchi Kamakoti Seva Forum, we want to present a memorandum against the bogus case foisted on the Kanchi Acharyas. That will also have an effect. Keep the flame of protest alive. And I don't think there is much more that you can do. I, being a politician, I will always ask for money, but I'm not asking. Because we raise enough within the country for this. But I would say that you should collect money and publicize through your websites. If necessary, even employ somebody who scans through the materials, consult lawyers on how you can file even litigation within this country. I'm told that against Saudi Arabia there is a large number of suits which have been filed for 9/11. Do that. I think Jayalalitha has some property in Chicago. Find out about it. And then she's liable for a suit here. There are ways of doing it. Consult lawyers. And I think just keep it multi-pronged and keep at it. Because it's a just cause and you're